Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Rattler Nation podcast. I am Maya Walker, and today we have a lot to share with you all. We're going to be discussing the ACA and its racial and ethnic disparities, the ethical lenses, as well as the Zubik and Burwell case. First up, we have Kiera Shaw, and she's going to be discussing the ACA and its disparities.
In other news, the Affordable Care Act, which is also known as the ACA or Obamacare, is the Comprehensive Health Care Reform Act that was enacted in March 2010. It had three primary goals. One was to make it affordable health insurance available to all and more people. Secondly, it was to expand the Medicaid program to cover all adults with income below the 138% of the federal poverty level. Three was to support innovative medical care delivery methods designed to lower the cost of health care generally. Now, what are the health and healthcare disparities? Health and healthcare disparities refer to the differences in health and healthcare between population groups. Disparities occur across many dimensions, including race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, age, location, gender, disability, and sexual orientation. While the Affordable Care Act was originally intended to reduce the disparities in coverage in clinical care, through its coverage expansions, the Affordable Care Act provides many opportunities to reduce long-standing disparities in health insurance coverage for people of color. So, why does this matter? Disparities in health and healthcare not only affect the groups facing disparities, but also limit the overall improvements in quality of care and health insurance for broader population and results in unnecessary costs. Some may ask what the status of these disparities are, and many groups are at a disproportionate risk of being uninsured, lacking access to care, and experiencing worse health outcomes, including people of color and low income individuals. Overall, the findings suggest that gains in health coverage under the ACA will lead to improvements in access to care and utilization for white, black, and Hispanic adults. They also highlight the importance of increased attention to addressing the racial and ethnic disparities in access to the utilization of care among privately insured adults, particularly as the privately insured population becomes more diverse as a result of greater enrollment of people of color into private plans through the ACA marketplaces. Continued efforts by insurers and providers to target the specific linguistic, cultural, and social and environmental needs of these groups will be important to achieving greater equity in access to and utilization of care. Such efforts may build on lessons learned from successful strategies in Medicaid, given the program's longstanding experience serving a diverse population. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Kiera. Next up, we have Taisha Brown, and she's going to be discussing the ethical lenses.
1 in 3 residents of the United States self-identify themselves as either African American, American Indian, Asian, Native Hawaiian, Hispanic or Latino, or even multiracial. By 2050, this number is expected to increase. As reported in an article by the Institute of Medicine entitled Unequal Treatment, it provides evidence that racial and ethnic disparities continue in medical care for a number of health conditions and or services. With that being said, each lens play a factor in settling or resolving the issue of unfair treatment in a health facility. So the lenses such as rights and responsibility, results, relationship, and reputation. So starting with the rights and responsibility lens, they're all about the rules. If the rules say that everyone deserves quality treatment, rights and responsibilities are in agreement with that. The results lens, they want to see good results. They have respect for self and for others, and they want to make people happy. What will make people happy? Quality and equal care, regardless of your race or ethnic beliefs. Also, the relationship lens, they focus on rationality and equity. They want to think about the community. They want fair treatment and administration of the rules. So with that being said, as stated in the results lens, everyone should have equal care. And even with the reputation list, they focus on sensibility and equity, and they're consistent with good character in a particular role, such as quality care.
Thank you, Taisha. Next up, we have Rosanna Thomas, and she's going to be discussing the Zubik versus Burwell case.
Thank you, Maya. So, the Zubik versus Burwell case is a case recognized by the Supreme Court that is consolidated under a huge umbrella of several other religious freedom cases that involves affordable health care contraceptive mandate against religious freedom. Burwell's stance on this case emphasizes that their administration is trying to be respectful of individuals' religious liberties, but also taking into consideration the insurance of effective women. And Zubik's stance states that contraceptive coverage mandate violates the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, a ruling in favor of Zubik's stance, which restricts women's reproductive rights and challenges religious freedoms of students, employees, and families. The Freedom Restoration Act of 1993 prohibits the government from placing a substantial burden on these businesses and or universities that consists of a 2-page form that gives these religious entities the option to not participate in contraceptive coverage because it goes against their religious beliefs. In relation to health disparities, Burwell states that Zubik is attempting to access control that denies women their lawful rights to contraceptive coverage that treats women's health care as second-class care and lesser than. Now, I will present a clip of individuals that are closely affected by the rulings of the Zubik versus Burwell case in relation to health disparities in a specific socioeconomic and population group and why the Affordable Care Act is so important to many women in the United States. Thank you.
I firmly believe that healthcare is a basic human right, and that includes reproductive health care. And Latinas need access to contraception. They have said that cost is a huge barrier to accessing birth control, and that is the reason why we stand with this. We stand with the ACA and building on the promise of the ACA. We're taking steps back. It's 2016 and we're talking about contraception and whether or not if your boss can decide whether you can have coverage for that contraception. I firmly believe that contraception allows me as an individual to plan out and space out when and how to have a family. And I believe not only me, but anybody should have the ability to do that, because then we can grow and build our families with salud, dignidad y justicia, which means health, dignity, and justice.
Last but not least, we have Rosanna Thomas, and she's just going to do a summary of everything that we discussed today.
Okay, so just a quick overview of what my colleagues and I just discussed on this series of Rattler Nation podcasts. Kiara Shaw explained the Affordable Care Act and health disparities and how the Affordable Care Act was designed to lower the cost of healthcare and was also implemented to reduce disparities in healthcare coverage for people of color. Also, she noted the comparisons of health disparities in the Affordable Care Act amongst different races. Following was my colleague Taisha Brown, who discussed the ethical lenses and how it relates to health disparities also amongst race. She provided evidence of how racial and ethnic disparities continue in the medical fields and how ethical lenses correlate to this by comparing each lens and the justifications of rules that determines the ethical things to do regarding health disparities within the medical field. And lastly, I summarized the case of Zubik versus Burwell, a case that closely affects millions of people in the United States, and how there is concise evidence of health disparities within this case that uses religion to restrict women's reproductive rights and challenges religious freedoms of students, employees, and families. Thank you.
We hope that you all enjoyed this podcast, and thank you for tuning in to the Rattler Nation podcast. Once again, I am Maya Walker. See you next time.